was brought to you by...
Just use MTN to make calls, send SMS, load airtime, buy bundles, or pay for MTN subscription services.
Everywhere you go, MTN.
Pay school fees conveniently using MTN Momo. Dial *165 *80#. Enter the student code provided by the school. It will show you the student name and the class plus outstanding balance. Enter the amount you want to pay. Enter PIN. You will get a notification confirming payment. It's simple, secure, and convenient.
Everywhere you go, MTN. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
While we know information is power, and every morning we wake up to ensure that you're well versed with what is happening locally and internationally. That is our mandate, to ensure that we equip you with relevant information as you go about business during the day. Welcome to our newsreel segment, where we pick a particular story and have an in-depth analysis of issues that are at hand. Today, I want to focus on the opposition in this country. You must remember that at one time we were all under the movement system. We had a referendum and Ugandans chose that we open up political space. However, years have passed and we are still wondering, did we have value when we made that decision? Has our political opposition in this country grown? Is it focused? Is it heading in the right direction? Recently we saw a number of reports coming in from the National Unity platform where there was a bit of bickering and accusing one another. Now, yesterday, there is yet another interesting turn that was made in the political arena of the people in the opposition. That is the Red Card Front, headed by retired Colonel Dr. Kizza Besigye, who wrote to other political parties. To be more specific, he wrote to the National Unity platform, NUP, and the Alliance for National Transformation, headed by, that is Honorable Mugisha Muntu, calling them, come, let's dialogue, come, let's make peace, come, let's see how best we can build a formidable opposition. This may not be the first time. Every time we've gone into an election, we've seen attempts of the opposition come together. Now elections were done, and they're saying, we can't use this time to build cohesion. We can't use this time to iron out our differences and ensure that maybe come the next electioneering year, we have set what it takes, we have worked together, we have built a formidable force then to take on the NRM that has jubilated and celebrated over 36 years in power. With me and, of course, the lady, we want to discuss how best can our opposition add value to the political arena of this country. And Felix, most of the times one would say this is something that would have been done maybe some time back before we went into elections, where the opposition would have galvanized efforts, worked together and brought up a formidable force. But now one saying Dr. Kizza Besigye, yes, he wasn't a contestant. His party had a candidate. He contested for some time, about 4 times, gave up, coming up and saying now is the time for us to unite and work together.
Well, Dr. Kizza Besigye is a respected political brain in the country, and the same is attributed to his ability to stand in the shoes of the opposition for quite probably the longest, and also make relevance of the same. However, with a change of dynamics in terms of political practices and political dimensions, we see that over time there's been growth or shift of posts, for that matter. The red card initiative, I may call it.
The Red Card Front?
Front, whatever.
By him. And of course, was also once head of people's government, don't you?
Absolutely, and that's what I was coming into that. Is this another face of the people's government, or is the people's government still in force?
Or is it basically looking for political relevance?
Well, I don't think I wouldn't want to look at it that way, but I'd want to look at the issue of the opposition generally, and probably for us to understand what we are faced with is probably to first of all understand what is the opposition. You know, when you come to majorly third world countries like this, people tend to lose the grip on the true definition of opposition, political opposition for that matter. Yesterday when the NRM was celebrating 36 years of the liberation, in short, of the efforts, the political efforts that they have made and the strides up till today, they put to plate the evidence of what they have been able to get over the years. And this is entangled in terms of medical health, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of political leadership, that's key, in terms of security, just to mention but a few. Now, when you live with a country, in a country that has political history of that kind, that should define the kind of opposition that is present in Uganda today. In fact, I will tell you without fear or doubt that the opposition in Uganda is the most aid to NRM's governance. In fact, they should be best friends. The opposition of Uganda is the best aid to the political system of the NRM. And I can give you reasons. One, they always get on the wrong issues. I can tell you, in a country where you have a democratic way of getting a leader, a democratic way of forming government, how dare you come and say that you have a people's government? So, the official government in power that went through an election is not people's. Is it a rabbit government or a cockroach government?
Just finished an election, a legitimate government has been elected.
Now, those
then
things
you come
they
up with
do,
a red card front.
those things they do, they demerit the purpose of the opposition. And secondly, the biggest misconception of the opposition is them thinking that they have to unite. They don't have to even to be friends. The agenda of the FDC, and that's where now the people like the Dr. Kiza SJ, they would wink other people. They would wink the people probably who are, who don't support government, to think that the problem that by they try to make that we have a common enemy. When you listen to Mr. Joseph Kabuleta's ideology, he focuses on economy. His party is definitely about economic transformation. He talks about taxes. When you go to the FDCs, they'll talk about politics. For them, they talk about the army, fighting, politics. They very few times they talk about the economics. When you go to the JMAs, they have a different ideology.
They all believe once we sort this, the rest will come into play.
You understand. When you go to the NUP, they have a totally different ideology. Now, you want to put that all in one basket, because for you think that the problem of Uganda is the president or his Mr. Museveni. That's your thought. But other people are saying that maybe we can do something differently. Now, the red card front, I'll tell you honestly, it's another disguise of buying time as we get to the next election. You get it? I want to ask a question. Why wasn't the red front thought brought amidst COVID? Because there was nothing to offer. The opposition had nothing to offer in the pandemic.
Those even political activities.
And that's the problem.
They always fought for we cannot breathe. They were suffocated politically.
If they wanted to make a statement, that was the best time. They would have made the red front in terms of politics and said, let's unite all political parties to give out mattresses, to give out beans, whatever that was being given out. So, I think we are misguided in terms of political practices because we are focusing on individual politics than state civil politics. Now, if Kirabo is out, we think the problem of Uganda is Kirabo. That's why you find some heads of some political parties will come out always abusing an individual. But they never talk about systematic challenges. Go to Parliament, just lastly. When you look at the August House, the opposition there, if you're to assess, and this I would want anyone to go and invest themselves in that research, assess the relevance of the opposition in Parliament. You can use a trajectory of about 15 years. and tell me if there's value. What have they done in terms of policy? Have in the committees they sit on? All these things.
Many will tell you usually that they're defeated by numbers, so their decisions when it comes to majority in terms of
if you're a
voting,
chairman of Kosase, Kirabo, which numbers are defeating you?
There men have been accused of corruption and benefiting from some of
so some of these things, the red card and what?
Mollen.
I joke for me.
When we decided to go into a referendum, we chose to open up political space so that we can have a fair meal. People are free to support what they want, exercise their democratic rights, not hindered in any way. But over the years, we've seen NRM in every election winning. We've seen the opposition come up with a number of initiatives, but none of them has yielded formidable resistance against the NRM to win people's support. Now at such a time when Kizza Besigye, Dr. retired Colonel Kizza Besigye, comes up and says now is the time than never before, do you see any possibility over a time where we've seen people actually competing for space in the opposition, not so much on the political arena nationally, but who is the big fish? All the time this has been the major competition.
Well, Robert, if you ask me, I will tell you one thing. The problem of the political parties across the country have been literally similar. Because if you look at even what they have right now as the red card front and what they are calling People's Front for Transition, it's just the same problems that have been there within all these political parties in Uganda. And for me, I want to call it just political mind games. They are just playing mind games, and they have this lack of ideology, and which has killed Uganda's opposition parties. They just don't have that ideology that they are moving forward. And we look at now Dr. Kizza Besigye pushing this same agenda. I want to double back on how he started his political career. You look at his motive, because we have to remember that when he started the FDC, that was way back in 2004, which was then called the Reform Agenda. He did put across a good manifesto and all these exciting things to Ugandans, and they were very hopeful for what could happen, for what was to come, different from what they were seeing the NRM moving forward. They just wanted that change, and people rallied behind him, people rallied behind this party. But what happened is that also came after his defeat in 2001, because now he was, this desperate political figure that was moving all this exciting idea, and people were actually rallying behind him for that. But then that's where the lack of ideology comes in, because whatever he was fronting forward was more looked at when you look into the analysis of that political agenda that he had. It was more like he was just blaming the previous government just because he had issues with it. He was not moving forward to push what the political party had put in place.
The slogan, agenda.
Yeah, and then you also look at the fact that after that, even because within that confusion of what he was pushing forward, then he went for the 2006 elections, which was actually more sound, because that's when he got more support, earning him a 37% in the elections against President Museveni's 59%. So at least that was a kind of a trial. But moving from that, then Ugandans start to realize, okay, so we are just rallying behind this political party, but it doesn't seem like we are moving with what we want to see as changes in the country. And that is where NRM actually comes in and defeats them. Because while they are moving all these agendas within and games within the political parties, NRM will sit back and do what the people want to be done. So then that's how they end up winning, even in connection to what these political parties are forming up. Now, you also look into the issue that in these same political parties, they will have misunderstandings and divides. And that's how other political parties come in. Now, after Dr. Kizza Besigye, stepping down in FDC, you also look into the fact that Mugisha Muntu now comes in play as the president of FDC. But because of the same political divides within these opposition political parties that are supposed to be helping, in the transition, he again branches off and starts his own political party. That is the ANT. Now, you look at the kind of political situation that we have. Instead of putting forward an agenda and look into what, as an opposition, how are you helping the country grow? Which agendas are you pushing forward? So that even the party in government can adapt to those. You again making these divides. Now, I want to make this reference to what even the Red Card Front did yesterday, writing a letter to NUP and, all these 19 parts of the country on, their way of trying to bring these parties together. Now, you also want to consider the fact that now they have seen NUP getting into the shoes of where FDC has been, and which is why it's no surprise that actually the Red Card Front is headed by Dr. Chiza Besigye. He's the same person who moved the FDC to where it is. So now they're seeing NUP as, this political party that has come in place with, similar excitement, similar agenda, and they are considering it I want to say threat, because what the position that NUP right now has is what FDC had back then in 2004.
So in your opinion, it is more like trying to maintain their stance on the political arena of this country at all costs by Kizza Besigye.
Well, there is also an issue of what I was talking about, the political games, the blame games, because now you'll find now that the Red Card will now blame NUP if they don't come together. And we saw this happen even when they were starting this position of transition just a few months ago, when they wrote to NUP and NUP was unable to work with them. And what we heard from NUP was...
Felix, we went into multi-party dispensation so that every party can shrive and Ugandans can make relative decisions on what is happening. But one of the challenges now that is befalling our political parties, I remember recently in the Kayunga elections, His Excellency, the Fountain of Honor, talked about these internal fights in political parties. Even before we look at them coming together, it seems either we weren't ready enough or we didn't understand how multi-party democracy should run in a country. Internal bickering, this fighting within and fighting each other as political parties. These are members of the opposition. She's brought out a very good point that maybe this could be another way of proving that we were willing to work and they didn't work because they didn't come to discuss with us. How can we avoid internal fights in political parties that later also lead into other parties, but also ensure that political parties stick to their mandate rather than these fights here and there that are not good for multi-party dispensation development?
I think the first thing for the opposition to understand is that they don't need to be together to win. I don't think the NRM had to merge with whichever party when it was going to start its ideology. I think the fact that they can't go to the bush now like the NRM did, or NRA then.
And it also attracted other fronts that were fighting
after it proved what it did, as you normally say, let me go. If they find my ideology relevant, they will follow. That's what NRM did. In this case, create a sellable, marketable political ideology. This is what I can tell these parties. In Uganda, I would say, mufune echitundwa. Politically, you know, what are you saying to Ugandans? You can't be saying Museveni again. That's not an ideology. You can't say NRM again. That is not an ideology. That is just an issue of a moment. Absolutely, the president will go at some point. That is under the law of nature. That is a fact. The man will go at some point. But you can't sell that. Now, that is the evidence of the absence of what we call sustainable political ideologies. And that's what they should focus on. Now they are putting in this group, People's Government, People's Corner of who, Radio Card of what, all that halabalu. Focus on an ideology that is sellable. Sell that ideology. You see, politics is like Utembei. For some of us who have done that before, that you must be able chotunda, chitundika. When you come with your bottle, what are you talking about it? You get the point. But the opposition has continuously failed to sit down and come up with a sellable ideology, not just any ideology. Of course, they have ideologies. Some of them will call other people what, they will abuse. But let's talk about a sellable a marketable ideology. I can tell you, if that happens, the worries will be answered. Because if you bring an ideology that is sellable to Mollen, Kirabo will buy. Even in fact, for us in marketing, they say even referrals. If Kirabo eats and is satisfied, they say, I think you should. But what are you selling? You can't sell rebellion, you can't sell defiance. That's not, you can't sell fighting, you can't sell insults, you can't sell propaganda. Who's going to buy? That's rubbish for me.
Very interesting from Felix. Well, time is not so much on our side. I'll give Mollen a minute or two to have your final remarks regarding the call for unity from the red card front by Dr. Kizza Besigye, and of course looking at multi-party democracy in our country. As we've now, it's over a decade that we are in this system. Are we moving in the right direction?
Well, I want to say we're moving in the, at least we want to move in the right direction, but that is not what we're doing right now. Because, Robert, if you look at the fact that most of the political players that we have right now that are bringing in all these key issues, there has been a connection with them in the ruling party, because you look at what, to us it will appear as if it's just a fight of we couldn't agree on certain terms. All these movements that have come up. First we had that Go Forward movement coming from someone who was still a key player in the NRM government. Then we also have the likes of Mugisha Muntu, Kizza Besigye himself. He was with President Museveni coming into power. So they have had to have that kind of misunderstanding that are bringing forward as if it is. That's why I want to respect the movements that are coming up now, not related to what was there in the ruling party. So I think what we have to do right now, even as they call for that kind of unity, is make sure that the unity that they are actually moving forward is for the good of transforming Uganda to that level, not for, you know, saying we just want to overthrow this movement that is there. We just want to get rid of the ruling party, but rather focus on what Uganda needs and how Uganda should look like in what you're planning.
Well, it reminded me of the words I was speaking to Paul Kawanga Semogirere, the politicians of our country, and he told me, in politics we don't have permanent friends, no permanent enemies. So one time we can share the same bed, the next time we may not. And one time you could be my enemy, the next time you're my favorite. Felix, your final shots on the growth of multi-party democracy in Uganda.
Well, I think it's unfortunate that up till today our politics is commercial, and that is the biggest effect. These opposition parties, you see, are simply clubs for money sharing. And the evidence has been seen. You go to parliament, you see the new parties. We remember when NUP came, everyone ran from DP because they wanted to stay in parliament. And now they're saying that
it was actually a people power movement
power, it was a wave. So everyone who wanted to stay in parliament had to how do you trust such kind of people? What ideology? What ideology were they selling from moving? You can understand. And now you see already we have challenges in parliament. You've had the bickeries about money, about what people are adding themselves salaries. The opposition should be the one refusing money, at least as the first symbol of being part of the... But
who refuses money in this country?
That's what I'm saying.
You
as
also
a symbol
sympathize with the opposition.
Yes, Gambia. We are not... Yeah,
about huge cabinet.
For example, they talked about cars.
It is that tempting that you're putting it across as government, giving it to these member of parliaments. You don't expect them to actually say, okay, we are opposition, we're not going to take the new cars. We didn't see them do that.
And that's what I'm saying, that would be the first evidence that they're actually for the people, because that's what they're, that's what they are saying. The government doesn't want people. Well, you who wants them, what have you done for the people?
Well, that is a big question we leave to our leaders, but it's very important that we ensure that the space created in our political arena to build political parties is respected at all times, and those at the steer wheel of these political parties work for the good of the people and a better Uganda. Felix has brought in a very important issue that, of course, we commercialize politics, and now most of our politicians are blinded by the finances rather than meaningful agendas, and others just focus on change of government. Uganda had a number of governments, a number of presidents before Kaguta Museveni, but none of them created that difference. It may not be necessary that we need to change leaders, but look at other issues that lead to the problems we have. When we return, we'll be looking at what is trending in the print media. Keep it with us.
This is Good Morning Uganda. Buli munya-Uganda nayetenga amakuru marungi. UBC West erina amakuru marungi kandi agali kwesigwa. Leero za program zaayo ziri omu Lunyakitara hamwe n'Olufumbira. UBC West eine tekinologiya ey'omulembe eri kugibaasisa kuhika omu bicweka byona omu ihanga nangu n'aheeru y'eihanga. Tukwatire aha frequencies zetu: Kisoro 97.7 Fama, Kabale 93.7 Fama, Hoima 99.1 Fama, Kampala 105.7 Fama, Mbarara 97.4 Fama, Footpoto 98.8 Fama, Masindi 5 Fama. Kurikiriza UBC West ohurire embaganiza. UBC West empika huna.
All eyes are on Africa. All eyes are on Cameroon. All eyes are on UBC. The drama, the heartbreak, the suspense, tears, joy and celebrations in the biggest sporting event on the continent. In one place, UBC. Call your public broadcaster today and grow your business with us. 0752 265 827 and 0776 611 540. UBC, inspiring Uganda.
You know, you could just buy a new smartphone from anywhere in Uganda. Dial *175 *94 hash to activate their 100% double data bonus offer on weekly or monthly bundles for 3 months. Better yet, you automatically receive free 1 GB valid for 30 days. You are hooked already, aren't you? Enjoy 100% double data bonus from Airtel. Buy a smartphone from anywhere in Uganda and insert an Airtel SIM card. Dial *175 *94 hash to activate a 100% data bonus offer on weekly or monthly bundles, valid for 3 months. Dial *175 hash and select your preferred bundle to activate a 100% data bonus offer on weekly or monthly bundles, valid for 3 months. Airtel, the smartphone network.
Live from Now Avenue in UBC Studios. This is Good Morning Uganda.
So much is happening, and our mandate is to ensure that we give you everything that you need to know as you kickstart your morning. So every weekday from 6:30 we are here till the hour of 9, updating you, ensuring that we give you a heavy breakfast full of relevant information. Let's now take you through what is happening in the print media this morning. I have the new vision and a big headline there: Uganda to hit middle income in 1 year. That is, our economy has grown 29 times since 1986, when NRA took power of this country. NRM celebrates 36 years of liberation, and there is a picture with the president and those in the medical fraternity that received medals. Still looking at liberation, there are 10 pages of NRM achievements, but also a series of 8 men who wanted to lead Uganda at independence. Death toll rises, that is the number of people killed by mudslides in Kisoro has risen. The vision gives you more of that. And Bank of Uganda, how the currency has changed under Mutebile That is the former governor who died on Sunday. Still in the new vision, they bring you English language and chemistry. That is in the new curriculum. Who are the new security chiefs? A big question there. And the vision gives you details of each of those that received the new assignments by His Excellency.
Well, of course, in the Daily Monitor, we should have done better, says Museveni, now the man in charge of our intelligence. Also, they give you. And of course, Kakwenza dumped at his home in Uganda, and 5,000 students show COVID-19 symptoms. Now, Treasury releases third quarter funds. Well, of course, still in the Daily Monitor, we're looking at Major General Geoffrey Tumusime Kasigazi. They are appointed as Deputy Inspector General of Police, and Samuel Gedede installed as 4th Kampala Archbishop. Now, today in history, Amin supports freedom fighters, and of course, also exiled Mugabe returns to Rhodesia there. That was in 1980. Okay.
Back to the new vision this morning. Parenting column. Our 20-year-old's girlfriend, that is our 20-year-old son's girlfriend, is pregnant. Now the parent wants advice on how best to handle this situation. I don't know if at 20 this is an issue. At 20 years, the girlfriend is pregnant.
Yeah, that's a big issue, Robert.
And then, how does one teach a clumsy child to be careful? Felix,
who's a clumsy child?
Felix will just tell Kubachibo.
You are over there now.
But looking at the COVID tracker this morning, you have 196 new cases. Positivity rate is as low as 3.3%. New confirmed death is 10. So something to watch out. And of course, the total number of people who have succumbed to COVID in this country is now 3,502. Once again, get vaccinated. We need to fight severe illness, hospitalization, and the worst being death. And only the vaccine can help us in this area. Looking at today in history, it was on this date, the 27th of January, the year 1971, when Idi Amin received reports about Tanzanian invasion.
Now, of course, in sports, Olympic medalists fated on NRM Day, and that is Hakimi wants more duties. Now, Mane concession Maz Taranga Lions progress, and also Murunji delighted with Baby Crane's fight against Emirates. Now, of course, they also give you Noble asks government to intervene in URA impasse, and 1986 Mexico, the lucky hosts of the World Cup. Now, of course, also big tees off for Entebbe Singleton Challenge 6. There for you, the golf lovers.
And in the New Vision Sport this morning, more focus is on AFCON, where they give you the table, how outstanding the games to be played today, and of course what time. But also they focus on tragedies on stadiums, and they bring you a picture of Olembe Stadium, where the scene of the tragic crash that left 8 people dead and 38 injured in Yomonde. There's so much of that. Then who closed the gate? There is so much there regarding football in Africa, and more so the AFCON that is going on, the biggest sports event on the football calendar of our continent, Africa. Not forgetting, our very own will be here to give you more and all those catchy stories in the sports arena.
On the Daily Nation, inside Uhuru and Mudavadi's fallout. Now, they give you after disagreeing in 2013, the leaders appeared to have buried their hatchets. Of course, also, they give you quite another insight. 1 in 10 police officers suffer from mental illness. New survey report shows. Well, of course, that's quite something interesting, Robert.
Well, if they're mentally, of course, we are all mad, but the level of madness differs. But when we talk about mental illness, I want to believe that is something that is very, very dangerous for law enforcers, because there are people that have lethal or weapons that can endanger anybody. So it's a scary research or report that really has to be dealt with. If a person has a mental challenge and they're having a gun, they're law enforcers. If you don't handle that very well, then it could be a problem. But also our traffic lady is very ready there, but also to look at your replies to our poll question and also take you through the roads. Well, Philo.
Thank you so much, Uncle Bob and Felix. Well, I actually want to say that mental illness, and it does not really take away anything to just look into it, especially to different categories of people now. If we are looking at people with guns and mental illness is really high, I think it's a matter that we just need to put into action and see how we can try to solve it. Well, getting into the poll question today and getting some of your responses. Well, the question was actually how you think government can try to deal with some of these fuel dealers to make sure that the prices are stable, especially when it comes to fuel. Now, from you, Derek, you're saying, well, as the government is fixing the problem of fuel shortage, let it also set a stable price per litre for all petrol stations, and anybody who goes beyond it should be dealt with, because some petrol stations really now want to take this critical condition as advantageous to them, and 50% of those stations are surprisingly owned by prominent political leaders who always claim to be merciful. So, well, I see, Derek, you are actually asking the government to really regulate these prices. Well, thank you so much, Derek. And keep the thoughts and opinions coming in. We'll continue to get into them as the show goes on. Now, back to the road. The situation this morning, I can tell you that it seems very many people are really trying to get their game on and trying to get into the city center, because we are seeing quite a number of red hot spots in several areas in Kampala city, also in the outskirts. So I think it's really, really important that you know some of these red hot spots as opposed to other days. Now, yesterday was a public holiday, so we didn't really have a lot of traffic flow on the roads. Of course, aside from some roads being cut off, especially around Kololo area where the event was happening, the celebrations were actually taking place. But today the roads have been opened up. However, the red hot spots are still very many in several of these areas, and also the orange spots in these areas are also crazy. So that clearly tells you that the traffic is really tight in several spots in the city, and also in some other areas it's also starting to build up. So you want to take that into consideration as you're trying to plan your way into the city, or if you're planning to leave the city center at this time. Also, I think it's very imperative for you to actually know which routes would be ideal for you to use. Now, this morning I will just start off from Nakawa, where you see this green line as you get onto Jinja Highway to get you into the city center. You can see that there are several red and orange spots, and it clearly shows you that very many people are trying to get into the city center or get onto these roads. Now, from Nakawa, you see the green line. It shows you that the traffic is flowing, so you have nothing to worry about. But when you continue, it's starting to build up. Now, there are several roads that will lead you to the main road, that is Jinja Highway heading to Kampala, and I'm talking about Nkunda. Now, if you are in Nkunda and you're planning to join the highway from into Nakawa, you need to know that the traffic is starting to build up. Also, an alternative route that you could use, that is the Katalima Road. It's actually a bit crazy because you see a lot of red around here and a lot of orange, meaning that there are very many cars, there are very many motorists, there are very many road users who have decided to actually use this shortcut to get into the road. So you may also want to look at other shortcuts that will probably help you skip all the traffic, because again, we know what happens when you get into that traffic. You burn a lot of fuel, and also time is burnt like that, so you may not be able to get to where you're supposed to be in the given time. So you continue all the way till Ginger Road, that will still lead you to Kampala Road. Now, as you can see in that area, the red spots are actually very many as well. So there are very many motorists around there. So you also want to be very smart about the routes that you want to use. If you insist on using that, well, I think you need to be very ready for this traffic buildup. However, there are also alternative routes that you could decide to use, maybe to skip all this traffic that will drag you. So if you are intending to get into the city center, you could actually use several other routes. That is, if you're using Yusuf Lule Road, which shows you the green line, so you are able to access Nile Avenue as opposed to continuing all the way to Ginger Road. Now, you could use the Nile Avenue Road, that is a little bit free, so the traffic is passable. It's not really as tight, and then you go all the way That is if you're entering the city center. But if you're leaving the city center as well, still I want to guarantee you that you have nothing to worry about, because the traffic heading out of the city center is not yet building, so it's okay if you are intending to leave the city center. Now that is one alternative, but you could also still continue all the way until you get to City Square. Now around City Square, you see around the Speak Road here where you see the orange line, it clearly shows you that, well, the traffic is starting to build up, and it's 7, so that is quite a rush hour for quite a number of people to get into the city center. So this wouldn't come as a surprise. Very many motorists are getting onto the road around Speak Road, so it's not the only alternative that you could probably be using, but there are very many other alternatives as well. Now you could use that Speak Road, which will help you get to the Square 2 Road, and you find yourself into Kampala Road. Now this is if you're trying to actually skip the main road. Now Kampala Road, the main road, you see where this red line, it shows you that the traffic is crazy, which also again does not come as a surprise to quite a number of us, because that road always has very many motorists, because we have very many road users trying to pour into that road from several of these shortcuts or several of these detours. So you may want to be very careful, or you may want to start thinking of an alternative. Now that is if you're getting into the city center, but if you are leaving the city center, Kampala Road is actually a very good idea for you to use, because like I said, at this time very many people get into the city but not leave the city. Now you can still continue all the way if you are still going ahead, and if you do that, you find yourself joining Bombo Road. That is if you're probably trying to access Wandegea. Now it's green. The green lines clearly show you that it's very clear for you to use if you are leaving. But even if you are actually getting into the city center, it's still free. But as you continue all the way to Kampala Road, the traffic starts to build. That is if you're actually trying to access the city center. So you can still use that route. You don't have anything to worry. And as you are trying to leave the city center and you probably want to use Buganda Road, well, I can say that's a good decision you're making, because it clearly shows you that the road is free, it's accessible, you have nothing to worry about, especially where they're showing you the green lines. Like I always say, you have to take note of the lines, because they clearly tell you what would be the ideal place, or what would be the ideal route for you to use. The green lines clearly show you that it's very possible, it's an option you could decide to go with. Well, that's it from the traffic updates, but like always, you know that Mollen is here to give you news concerning climate, weather changes, and also give you the forecast, the weather forecast for the day. But Mollen, I just want to say something. In the last couple of hours, we saw what the mishappenings that happened in Kisoro. We saw the floods and the mudslides, and unfortunately, we lost quite a number of lives. Now, I really want to know, do you think this has something to do with the climate changes that we have been seeing? These are some of the after effects of the way we've been degrading our climate and our weather.
Absolutely, because you look at the fact that we no longer have what was known as the normal. The frequency of how we are seeing these landslides across the country is getting more and more, on the rise. So that is an indication that obviously there are changes within our climate, and it's not the first place that we're seeing landslides. We have seen them happen over, Kasese, Bududa, and I can tell you in the last 10 years how you can see that this is connecting. That has been more on a rise than we previously had. So obviously, climate change has a lot to do with what is happening over there.
All right, thank you so much, Mollen. Well, that's it from the traffic updates, and I'm pretty sure Mollen will be giving you more about this climate information, something that we need to put into action, what we need to do to make sure that we get our climate back to the way it was. From me, Philomena Masco, have a very wonderful and lovely morning.
Well, thank you very much, Philo. But I want to take it from there. We are still having reports of landslide aftermath across Kisoro, and so far the death toll has risen to 9 people, and we'll be getting into that story. But we also have a connection between what happened in southwestern Uganda, that is in Kisoro, to the tropical storm that we right now have over the effects of tropical storm Anna, which is over Mozambique. Now that whole effect effect of what happened in Kisoro is much related to what was happening over the Mozambique Channel. And we did see a tropical storm is more like a low pressure system that dives into an area hailing from the Indian Ocean. And what it does is it creates a lot of waters, a lot of rainfall that now heads for floods and most likely much of the destruction. Now what we do have across Mozambique and Malawi after this tropical storm perusing through, we already have destruction of property, and so far also we have 12 people. The death toll is to 12 people having confirmed dead across Mozambique and areas of Malawi. Now we also saw at least over 100 homes that have been destroyed from the tropical storm, and so far also more than 50 people have been injured from the effect of tropical storm Anna. Now you will look at, later we'll be looking at the satellite and see the connection of how this is actually connected to what we have across Kisoro right now. Now, more of the images that are coming through from Mozambique still showing the devastated areas, especially those that are close to the Indian Ocean, where we did see much of the destruction, homes being destroyed, and that's where we actually had big numbers of people, losing their lives. Now we also saw that same effect coming to Kisoro, and the pictures that are coming through, those are from Kisoro, of how after the the landslide perusing through Mount Muhavura. Now we have to remember that most of these effects, when they come, they're also enhanced by the local sceneries, because now with Mount Muhavura, that means that even when the landslide is coming, for the people that are settled down at the mountain, they will be having more of the effects. Now we did have at least UPDF trying to come in and help. We did see some of the locals that were actually stranded from the aftermath of the landslide across Kisoro, and that really did start in with heavy rainfall across that area. And also we had Red Cross coming in to also offer help, and the landslide does bury a lot within the ground, so we don't know even if there are still more people that are buried down by the landslide. But we have at least the UPDF on ground and Red Cross trying to make sure that all the damage is assessed, to make sure that they found out the real numbers. They found out the real numbers of what is happening across Kisoro. And also yesterday we did see disaster and preparedness come in to at least warn people of what is likely to happen. But you look at this time of the year, we're having reduced wet weather conditions across much of the country, but still what we have been putting in the forecast, and one thing that we have emphasized, is some of the areas that are still going to be having these rains. And southwestern Uganda has been one of those that we have continuously continued to forecast having rainy conditions over that area. Now when you have the unlikely events of such storms developing for this time of the year and as close to us as that, then that means that we're going to have more of these effects, and that is something that the Ministry of Disaster and Preparedness should be looking at, especially resettling people that are down the mountains, because that's how the whole landslide effect comes in, and that means that the soils that will be coming off the mountain will obviously cause much destruction to the homes that are down the mountain. So these are places that should be, should not be considered for settlement. And if we are seeing such events, that means that there should be a plan to relocate these people, just like how we have been doing across, the hotspots like Bududa. This is one of the areas that should now be in consideration if we're talking about resettling people and making sure that we don't have similar effects. Now, we did see some of the help coming through to Kisoro, that is from, the officials in government, and also Red Cross trying to make sure that at least the situation is curbed over there. But those rains are still, expected over the area, although the effect of what we saw even from our satellites is that at least tropical storm Anna is trying to move away, and that could mean that we have the Congo air mass also retracting from that area. But you look at the fact that we still have that storm actually coming through over that area, and I'm moving closer to look at what is still happening even there. You look at most of the rainy systems that we still have over that area are all an indication of those strong systems that are still playing over. Now, the connection between this tropical storm between Mozambique, because when we're talking about the Mozambique channel, this is the area we're looking at. This is the area we're looking at. And most of the storms that we already still have across the Indian Ocean, where you see the the deep red and blue to orange colors, that is where we have most of the low pressure systems that end up developing into those tropical storms. Now, we did have that storm developing here across Mozambique Channel, and that is what was bringing a lot of effect towards parts of Malawi. You can see even up to now, Malawi is still having those rainy conditions, although not to the extent that we did see in the last couple of days. And same also for the areas of Mozambique, still a little bit of rains over there, but at least we do know that the storm has weakened and that has moved away. It is not causing much more of the effects. We just are dealing with the aftermath of that area. Now, what happens is that with these low pressure systems, they keep attracting most of the moist air. So every place that has those low pressure system will be taking in the moist air. Now, what happened with Kisoro is you look at the fact that we do have the Congo air mass, and this is one of the systems that have been affecting our weather over the years. It's one of the systems that we do consider even when we are making forecasts. Now, all this is going to try to move towards the low pressure system. And this is what happens because now you look at systems that have been affecting the western part of the country moving towards the tropical storm. And that's where the effect comes through, because this is one that will be carrying moisture, it will be carrying those strong winds, and in turn, all the moisture that it will be moving towards the tropical storm will now peruse through the areas where it can actually reach. And that is where it took in parts of our southwestern Uganda, that is across Kisoro, leading to those devastating effects that we had, also the heavy rains and landslides. But the good news is that it has cleared, as you can see right now, even across southwestern Uganda, we don't have those rains there. Seems like the system has moved a little bit towards Congo, and the fact that the storm has moved away means that even what is there is not to the extent of having those high effects. Now, we do see more of the storms that are developing, but at least those are right deep down into the Indian Ocean, and so there are no islands there. So much of the effect that is coming through, even for the storms that we're seeing there in deep red and orange, it's just over the ocean. Now, thankfully, it's not yet to the land and might actually die off before it comes towards our area. But that is what we can be looking at in terms of how these storms develop and end up affecting, areas within our country. But looking into what is happening even right now across the country, it looks like we have, returned to the normal situation, looking at mostly dry weather across the country. We do have those open gray skies, meaning that we are dealing with sunny conditions this morning across most areas. Yesterday also was kind of similar. We started off with mostly a sunny morning across the country. Much hot, actually, if you ask me, compared to what we had the last couple of days. Now, today looks like a repeat of yesterday. We're starting off with mostly clear skies. We're having mostly sunny conditions, and that is likely to continue throughout the entire morning. We also do have a little bit of cloudy conditions, but are starting to develop just over areas within Midwestern Uganda. You look at parts of the northwestern part of the country and across Mount Elgon where we have Mbale, but it looks like most of that is also just a mixture of sunny conditions. So I'd say it's quite a pleasant morning, starting off with sunny conditions. But more of that is in the forecast for the morning as well. So it looks like we will be continuing with similar weather even into the afternoon. Now, there is also more to consider when it comes to temperatures that are across the country right now. We have at least the 30s, coming to the 30s within the northern part of the country, and also for that eastern side across Soroti, Amoria. Now, those are the areas that are already hitting the 30s. We're seeing 32, 33 across that area. So you should be looking out for that. Now, northern Uganda did even hit up to 34. That is across Gulu. We have Kitgum, Padel. Those areas are already really hot. And you also consider the Karamoja region that is also equally rising. And we still have that forecast of, having more of those, dry conditions and temperatures rising. So that is one to look out for. But I can tell you this morning, at least we do have quite a cool morning, but temperatures will be rising. So yes, it is another time for you to keep that water bottle handy and look forward to, keeping yourself hydrated in such conditions. Well, we do have Good Morning Uganda agenda coming up. Robert will be here to take you through that and highlights on AFCON. Well, the big story around, we do have Ruben here to take you through sports, and then later we'll be having Good Morning Uganda extra also that will be coming through. Well, for me, I'm Mollen, Kenyena. I want to wish you a wonderful morning.
Airtel 4G smartphone. You get to enjoy free 1 GB data valid for a month and 100%